Dzień dobry, assalamu alaikum, ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola. How are you doing today? This is Ken at 10. Welcome once more to the show. If you haven't been here before, then thank you very much for joining me. I'm Ken, it's 10, and that's why. We are James Alexander Estate Agents, and we broadcast every day about all things property and what's going on, really, both in the country, the world, and anything else I can think of, really. So I hope you're having a good day so far. It's a beautiful day here in southwest London. We're in Norbury, which is situated between Streatham and Croydon. Streatham to the north and Croydon to the south. So we're smack bang. A bit of a thoroughfare, to be honest. People don't really know us, and that's why I draw it to your attention, because it's a nice place full of lovely people, and always good to put us on the map there. We are a Zone 3 commuting area. We deal with sales and lettings and property management. So we're kind of at the coalface and like to tell you what's going on with the market, both locally and nationally, in terms of what's happening. And right now what's going on is springtime. Yay, we love the springtime. Great time of year. And of course, this weekend, the clocks go forward, spring forward, fall back. That's how I always remember it. So that means we've got brighter times ahead. And that's always a nice thought, isn't it? And better weather. And this time of year and in this market at the moment is quite bullish. Lots of buyers out there, lots of action going on. Now, on top of that, we've got all these counter things that are going on, counterintuitive to a busy market, I mean, and that is interest rate hikes. We've got fuel price rise hikes, and the Chancellor did little to alleviate that. Yes, it's good to see the 5p on fuel. Frankly, I would have rather seen something for the actual price of heating and electricity and gas costs, because I think this is the sharp end rather than petrol. Petrol's important, of course, to most of us, but actually there are those that don't have cars. They'll get no benefit whatsoever from this. Particularly, I'm thinking of poverty-stricken pensioners, where it is a case of heat or eat. Literally, can you imagine being in that situation? So, you know, I know there are awful things happening in Ukraine and the world and everything, but just domestically back home, I think people are not really being protected by the measures that have been put forward. And it's a shame. It's a great shame. And I do think at some point it will come home to roost. We've got really massive rampant inflation. That's not going to abate anytime soon. That's helping with property prices as well. Property prices are going nuts, of course. Interest rates are rising. Now, one of the things that we've seen so far is there's a prediction just come out, actually, and that is that UK house price will increase by an average of 20,000 by the end of the year. And that's the government's official forecast. High demand and strong household savings mean property price will claim a further 7.4% in 2022. That's according to the Office for Budget Responsibility. And they're saying that the average home, which was 275 in December, will cost 295, nearly 300,000 for the average home. Crazy money, isn't it? But it is what it is. Now, Martin Lewis has come out and said you should fix your mortgage rate. Well, that's profound, isn't it? Many of you will know we've been advising that for the last 6 months, but he is right, of course. As far as the mortgage rates are concerned, if you are staying put, and do get, this is not financial advice, of course, do get advice from your financial advisor, there are still decent rates available. And if you are staying put and you have a mortgage which is going to be with you for some considerable time, then if you can, try and lock down that rate for a number of years, because it looks like interest rates are only going one way. We've been saying this for, I think, about the last 6 months now, when there were better rates around. And I know it can feel like you kind of missed the boat, but there are still some good deals out there. And I would urge you to have a look at them, although this is not financial advice, because if you're on a standard variable rate, you're probably paying more than you have to. It's a little bit like, you know, on the fuel bills, where if you don't lock down a rate with a particular supplier, you tend to be paying over the top. Well, that's the same with mortgages. So make sure that you know someone or speak to a financial advisor that's got access to the whole of market and can give you some advice as to whether you should fix. Of course, there are other considerations with mortgages. You do have these things called redemption penalties, which mean that if you choose to lock into a fixed rate, then you will be given a penalty if you come away from that rate within that fixed rate period. So for instance, if you've got a 5-year fix, there might be a 3% penalty. That's 3% of the loan if you pull out of that fix before that term has ended. And generally it's on a bit of a sliding scale. So it might be 3% on year 1, 2%, and so on. But it's important to note that when you've locked it in, you have locked it in for a period of time. Now, spring, what does that mean for house prices? Well, at the moment, it means that things are really rampant, really strong, and we've got far more buyers than sellers. Our advice this year is, if you're thinking of moving, it could be a really good time. Why? You're going to get a good price for yours, and there is more availability. There's more stock coming up than we've seen for a long time, because the confidence is there. It will be squeezed. There will be a squeeze later on in the year. I'm not sure how that will affect the market, but what we can be sure about is right now, there's lots of market activity and lots of people are out there looking. It's busy, particularly in our area around the £500,000 mark. There are so many buyers looking in that price bracket that things are inevitably getting inflated over that price quite often. We're asking offers over. We just had one particular instance where offers over 500 leaded to nearly 600. So it just goes to show things can surprise you. And it's important to get ahead of that by making sure that you know exactly what you're buying. Take your time. Don't feel panicked into buying. If you're a first-time buyer particularly, make sure you've researched the whole of the market. You're comfortable with what your money can buy you. I know some agents will say to you, look, you must buy this one now but you can end up making a wrong decision if you're too rash. And it's a bigger decision than that. Take your time. Consider all things, including if you're buying a flat, particularly length of lease, service charges, whether there's lifts, any future costs. These are all really important when it comes to flats. Obviously, if you're buying a house, it's slightly different. And we do find small freehold houses are in great demand at the moment as well, for obvious reasons. There just aren't enough of those around. First-time buyers in our area, for instance, particularly, you can buy a small freehold house for not much more than a garden flat. And of course, it still has the garden and doesn't have the associated service charge costs. Maybe not quite as trendy or as cool as the conversion flats, and often local authority, ex-local authority, but not on a council estate. They can be good value and a good alternative to the conversion flats. If you're fortunate enough to be in the £500,000 bracket or more, then be ready for competition. There's going to be lots of it around, lots of people out there looking, and you've got to be ready to compete. Inflation has hit a 30-year high after rising 6.2%. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? Affordability is still there, but it's being squeezed every day. And as fuel prices rise, we got the October fuel price rise after the one that we just had as well. And this is a real concern for many families. And you know what us Brits are good at doing when we're not sure what's going on in the world? Things like Ukraine can have an impact, and particularly fuel prices, interest rates. We worry. And when we worry, we tend to do nothing. We tend to sit on our hands. So although we're in a boom at the moment, you never know how long this might last. So, whatever you do, make sure that it's affordable to you. And when you're looking around the house, you should be able to ask yourself one question above all else. Am I comfortable with the monthly payments on this house? If you look at the big numbers, they're always going to be scary. If you're buying at 300,000 or $1 million, it's all scary numbers, isn't it? Certainly is to me and was to me as a first-time buyer. But if you look at the small payments, that is the monthly payments, ask yourself the question, can you afford those monthly payments? And if you can afford those monthly payments, then you can be confident. You can go ahead and say to yourself, this place I'm looking at now is going to cost me £1,000 a month. Am I comfortable with that? Does that fit within my budget? Can I maintain the lifestyle that I want to lead? Really important that you consider those things, because you don't want to be literally working to fund your mortgage and then you can't live. There has to be some freedom in there for you somewhere and some point of enjoyment, hopefully. But that said, really beautiful day today here in Norbury. We've got a number of valuations coming up and a number of new instructions as well. So really busy on new things coming to market, which is always exciting for us. And it's always nice dealing with new families and the aspirations of people moving to different areas and things. We get excited for them. That's part of the fun of it for me, is understanding not just what we're selling, but where they want to go and why they want to go there, so we can get in our heads what they've got in their heads and try and make sure that we all work together for the absolute best outcome. And that doesn't just mean achieving the best price on the sale property that we're selling on their behalf. Of course, that's our job and we're paid for that. But it also means assisting them quite often in the onward search for the next house. Because in some ways, that's more important, isn't it? You need to fall slightly out of love with what you're selling, because the important one to you now is not the one you're selling. That's history. It's the one you're buying. Can you envisage your family in that garden? Does the local school work for your children? Really powerful considerations. And these days, the one that comes up time and time again is, of course, schooling. And of course, now with the remote working, we've had lots of people go to coastal resorts and the like that wouldn't have considered it in the past. I wonder how long that will last, because I do think that they will find it a bit of a culture shock when they moved to these places last winter, particularly, and all of a sudden you've got the summer holidays and you're on the coast and you can't drive anywhere. The congestion is worse than London, particularly in places like Brighton. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. We have had a number of people that rented in those areas come back to London. It's always good to welcome them back, because you know what? London's the best city in the world. Just a personal opinion, but I really do believe that. It's the most culturally diverse. It's got the most fantastic history, and it's a beautiful place to be. So, if you're thinking of moving and you just want some advice, as always, get in touch. It doesn't have to be in our area. We're always happy to help if we can. Give us a call through, drop us an email, click us a like and share on the video. We're always grateful for that. And apart from that, do comment if there's any questions that you'd like to ask. Tomorrow morning, we're working on the podcast again. Of course, look that up if you haven't already. That's the Property Buyer and Sellers Podcast. You'll find it on your favorite provider, or go to our website, jamesalexander.com, click on the link at the top and you'll get to it from there. So yeah, this weekend, really important weekend, more light. We love more light in the mornings, and when the clocks go forward, that's what happens. And also we're getting into that summer selling season, which is fantastic. We've had a great March so far, lots of exchanges, lots of new instructions come to the market, and we're looking forward to a really busy April. In terms of the market ahead, we're certainly going to be busy April, May by the looks of things, for sure. Traditionally, it's March, April, May, June are really busy. And then as the families go off on the summer holidays between July and August, it quietens down. But of course, the flip side of that is if we've already got 10 buyers for every house that's available and people go away in July, August, well, we only need one buyer for a house, right? So you don't necessarily need this huge volume, but to get a higher price, having that mass audience, of course, helps with that. And that's why the spring is such a popular time to sell. And of course, the reverse of this is that where you're looking, it's also going to be true. So although you might get a better price on yours, you might find you've got to pay that same premium elsewhere. And I always think, you know, that's the thing that a lot of people don't consider. They consider the money on their own house, but they don't consider that actually the other end of this transaction, there's another client trying to get the best, and their agent's trying to do the best for them. And they're in a similar situation, probably trying to protect their family, make sure they get the best price they can so that they can move and make the very best move for them and their own. But yeah, really exciting time of year for us, and we're looking forward to it. In terms of offers coming in, honestly, the sad side of it is not everybody can be winners. When you've got offers coming in at the rate they're coming in at the moment, we have to select very carefully, and we're always as sensitive as we can be, because we know this is people's lives. You know, when people make offers on houses, it feels very, very personal. For us, of course, it is business on the one hand, but on the other hand, we want to make sure that everybody's treated with respect and fairly, and given the best crack that they can. You're always going to end up with losers in this situation, and some of that may involve bitterness, but we try our best to be as transparent as possible while still working for the seller, not the buyer. Of course, you must understand, buyers, that we are paid to get the best price for our client, and it doesn't always mean the most money. Sometimes they want people in certain circumstances. In fact, I'm delighted to say we just tied up a sale where we could have got more from someone else, but actually the client decided that what they wanted was a family to take the property rather than a business, and that was really nice to see. So it still does happen, but I hope you have a great day today. Enjoy the sunshine. We're back tomorrow with another edition. Until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, and if you can, your family and friends. Ciao.